this. It's about humility, all right? I wanted to address about humility because I find myself, and maybe you do too, going from humility to pride really quick sometimes. All right? And some of you are like, I'm not prideful, I'm not boastful. Just hear me out. Just hear me out, okay? And I don't use the word pride in my everyday life, but I use this phrase, I got this. All right? One of my favorite things is I got this. Put me in, coach. All right? I know what I'm doing. I'm ready to go. All right? And that's my personality to a T. It really is. I got this. But as we're worshiping this morning, I'm up here. I'm just being touched by the Lord. And God always reminds me, I really don't got this. I really don't. I only get to walk up on this stage. I only get to come up here, and I have to fully rely on what God is doing in my life. God, I know you got this. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So we're going to open in scriptures today. We're going to talk about 1 Kings, all right, chapter 3, chapter 11, all right, and we're going to tie this all back to the New Testament. But I want to give you just an illustration of what we're going to go through. So I want you to imagine you are starting a new job. All right, you just go to start a new job. Maybe it's a skill or a trade you've never done before. All right, how many of you guys remember your first jobs? Some of you remember your first jobs? All right, I remember walking on the scene to my very first job, all right, and I had no clue what I was doing. I was a sandwich artist, all right? I don't even know if they still call it that anymore. I made sandwiches for Subway, all right? It wasn't anything special, but I was so nervous and listen, I'm starting this new job, and what do? I asked my friend who works there, because my friend got me the job, okay? I'm like, teach me how to do the job, all right? And you have trainings, and you have people that help, and you get a mentor sometimes in a job, and you go through these different training courses, right? And you start learning how to do the job. And you get better, and you get better, and you get better. And then you get some confidence. And then you start doing your own thing. I got this. I don't need anybody's help. And what ends up happening is mistakes start piling up pretty quickly because I get overly confident. I get to the point where I don't need no one's help. I got this. And for me, I got a little too confident. I got to the point where I thought I was so cool. The water is open, so I can't do this. I did this deliberately for myself. But I would take the bottles for all the types of toppings you use, like the different dressings, and I would flip them in the middle of making sandwiches. All right? I'm a married man now, so my wife knows my BC era, but I'd flip sandwiches like, hey, how you doing? All right? It's the thing I did. I got overly confident. And what ends up happening is this. Flip the bottle, but the lid wasn't on it. And what happens? I made a big mess. I think we can relate to that today. So if you can join me in opening 1 Kings chapter 3, verse, we're going to read 15 through 14 together. We're going to talk about King Solomon and his journey, and this just relates right to it. He started his reign with great humility, seeking God's wisdom to lead his people. But his confidence grew, and his distractions multiplied, just like I got distracted. He shifted from humble, dependent on God to a self-entitled, an attitude of, I got this. And the results were devastating. So, as we explore this passage this morning, all right, I want us to think about how we sometimes shift from humility to pride, or humility to I got this. So, join me in reading in 1 Kings here, and we're gonna jump and dive right into this. So at Gibeon, the Lord appeared to Solomon during the night in a dream, and God said, ask for whatever you want me to give you. Solomon answered, you have shown great kindness to your servant, my father David, because he was faithful to you and righteous and upright in heart. You have continued this great kindness to him by giving him a son to sit on his throne this very day. Now, Lord my God, you have made your servant king in place of my father David, but I am only a little child and do not know how to carry on my duties. Your servant is here among the people you have chosen a great people, too numerous to count or number. So give your servant a discerning heart to govern your people and to distinguish between right and wrong. We're going to come back to that. For who is able to govern this great people of yours? The Lord was pleased with King Solomon and asked for this. So God said to him, since you have asked for this, and not for a long life or wealth for yourself, nor have you asked for the death of your enemies, but a discernment in administrating justice, I will do what you've asked. I will give you a wise and discerning heart, so that there will never be anyone like you, nor will there ever be. Moreover, I will give you what you've asked, not asked for, both wealth and honor, so that in your life you will have no equal among kings. And if you walk in obedience to me and keep my decrees and commands, as David your father did, I will give you a long life. Let me tell you, there's a lot we can unpack from that today. There's so many, and I mean so many great things. And I'm thinking about it, and I'm going, King Solomon asked for a discerning heart, but God gave him a wise and discerning heart. He gave him more than what he asked for. He actually separates the two. We always preach and talk about, him being wise beyond belief, but he didn't ask to be wise. He asked for a discerning heart, so he could rule, so he could judge, so he could give out punishment. He did this, and God was like, I'm going to make you wise as well. See, because King Solomon was able to be humble, we can take for this. Humility brings true wisdom. It's one of the foundation pieces we have. Solomon begins his reign with a heart of humility when God appears to him in the dream and offered everything that he could have wanted. Listen, that could have been us. Power, fame, money, worldly desires, church. And he goes, I want a discerning heart. He was really, really relying on the Lord. And because of that, he was able to be humble. See, Jesus calls us to follow his example of humility. In Matthew 11:29, take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. Unlike Solomon, who had asked for wisdom, Jesus embodies wisdom itself. Through him, we have access to wisdom that brings peace and rest when we humbly rely on him. I don't know about you, church. I just got back from this retreat. I need some rest. Let me tell you something. All right, I love your kids, but I need some rest. So when you see your students today and you get to see the leaders, pray for rest for them. They need it. But at the same time, we know we can find the ultimate rest in Jesus. We really can. When we commit to walking out a life like that, when we commit to, we will find the rest we need. But we have to commit to living a life like that as well. King Solomon, he was humble, but he found himself always praying. He found himself always seeking God for wisdom. In those moments, in your toughest things you're going through, in the biggest trials you're dealing with today, are you seeking God for wisdom for it? Are you seeking God for wisdom in the smallest things? I'm a firm believer that if you want to do great things, and I'm a big football fan. I've got a couple big football fans in the house, right? All right. I know Lions didn't do so hot. I'm so sorry, Brother Tim, but they have next year. So do the Vikings. It's okay. But I've always loved the saying, and this is why when I was playing football, what you do in practice is what you're going to do in the game. When I'm dealing with the biggest scenarios, the toughest things, the ugliest demons that I could possibly imagine to go against, right? What I've been doing in practice, what I've been doing in my day-to-day life, what I've been doing in my prayer closet, I'm going to do in that moment. And sometimes that means I'm going to turn to the wrong thing because I didn't prepare properly. Are we preparing properly, church? Solomon showed us what that looks like. So if you have any children here in the house today, all right, I just want to give a small little trigger warning for those. I know we dismissed our kids to our kids' church. I know we have some kids in nursery, but just in case, I would just want to, before we go to the next passage, I just want to be just extra conscious of this, okay? Because this next passage is a little graphic, all right? In 1 Kings chapter 3, 16 through 28, we're going to talk about what happens here. And I'm not going to read it verse for verse just because I want to be not just conscious time, but I just don't want to be overly graphic. But what ends up happening here is it's one of the first times that King Solomon is using this wisdom. All right? And he has these two ladies, all right? They're two prostitutes, and they both give birth to babies. Both within the same time. They're both alone in their house. No one else knows what these kids look like but these two ladies. And one dies. And the other lady swaps the baby out. So they go to the king to get this taken care of, to change the situation here. And in this process, the king is hearing, oh, this lady's saying it's hers, this lady's saying it's hers, and they're going back and forth. And he gets a little bit of wisdom. I don't think it would work in today's society. But he goes, go get me a sword. We'll cut the baby in two. Give half to this lady and half to this lady. Now, it's kind of barbaric, right? But King Solomon is relying on God's wisdom in this very moment. Because what he's looking for is not to harm a child. He's looking for the response of the heart of a mother. And you got moms in the house, dads in the house. Let me tell you, this hits me hard. It hits me hard. And just like that mother, as a father, I would do everything in my power for my child. And what does he do? He recognizes this. He says, that's the true mother. The woman that was willing to give up the life. Give it to her. Let her take the baby. I don't want to see him harmed. And the people of Israel are astonished at the wisdom that came from that. I know I wouldn't have thought of that. Lord, don't ever let me think of that. But Lord, you take care of the situation. But he knew what the love, the sacrifice that a mother was willing to give for their child. And he could recognize that. And what does he do? He goes, don't harm the baby. Give the baby to the rightful mother. The other lady was like, split him in two. This way, neither of us have a child. He could see the difference. God can see the difference in our heart and how you and I act each and every day, how we respond in times of crisis, or even in the little things, even the little hiccups of the day. Let me tell you, church, my second thing is confidence in wisdom leads to action. Now, we need to have confidence in the wisdom that God has given us in order for us to respond the way he wants us to respond. I may have told you guys this. My youth have heard this a million times. I apologize if you guys are in the room, all right? But I remember the day I was walking outside my house. It's the middle of the summer. It's like 98 degrees outside. It is hot. And I'm looking and I'm walking out, and I have a bucket right by my door that holds the weirdest things. But it's a 5-gallon bucket. It's got like my walking stick in there. It's got like my umbrella. It's got my metal detector. Like I said, weird things. Okay. And I look at it because it's right there by the door. Walking out, I look at it, and I get this check in my system. I call it my check, my gut check, but I know it's God. I've learned to listen to when God gives me this check. It's like a butterfly feeling for me. Take the umbrella. Lord, I've never carried an umbrella in my entire life. I love the rain. I love being rained on, all right? I used to ride my bike in the rain, all right, because I used to think I was training for some type of marathon, all right? All right, like I just loved it. But God's like, take an umbrella. No, Lord, I'm not going to take an umbrella. You know how long I sat in the doorway keeping my cat like this as I'm trying to argue with God, to take an umbrella? I finally give in, and I take an umbrella. Long behold, I walk out of Walmart. It pours. And I'm like, wow, Need an umbrella. And I pop it open, and I was like, I look like the smartest guy in the world. This is great. I got an umbrella. And God's like, it wasn't for you. Oh. And I look over and I see this couple. And he is doing his best to cover his wife or his girlfriend at the time. And he's like, go talk to them. Go cover them. Like I've covered you. So I get to strike a conversation up with someone for the first time because I had an umbrella. I was able to walk in confidence because of the smallest things. That wasn't the biggest battle of my life. The cat might have been, all right? But the biggest battle of my life, all right, as they come and go, I get to rely on God's strength, God, because I know I can listen to him in the small things. Are we listening to the small things, church? When we have confidence in the wisdom, it can lead to godly action. It can lead. So as I was thinking about this week and what we're doing, I was praying to God. I go, God, I love this story of how you gave this man godly wisdom. It was so good. I was only a few chapters in, right? And he's like, read more. I was like, God, you know I always read more. I take the chapter beforehand. I like to take the chapter or two afterhand. I like to get the context of what's kind of going on. I love this story. He goes, read more, Pat. There's so much more to the story. For the next several chapters, it shows all these amazing things that King Solomon does and continues to do with great wisdom. People come from far away to hear him speak, to understand what he's saying. And I start resonating with that. I'm like, yeah, I love that. I love that, Lord. I love that he was walking in your wisdom. He was walking in your discernment. He was able to give out fair and rightful punishments. He understood things that no one could understand, and it got recognized. His kingdom was built beyond belief that no other king could compare. Other kings looked at him like, oh, yeah, this guy, his God has blessed him. I'm like, God, I want that. I want that. And then something happens. Time goes by. Just like time at the sub shop, I got overly confident. And I let things of the world distract me. Money, women, more money. Trust me. I was like, if I'm the best sub maker in the world, I'll get better tips. All right? If I'm a little flirtatious, I'll get better tips. All right? If I do this great job and I have all these customer compliments, I'll be put on the schedule more and I'll make more money. I was being literally manipulated and twisted and molded by the world of the things that I just wanted. And the more money I had, the more things I bought. I was young and stupid. I'm still young and stupid. I'm just married now, so my wife helps me a lot. But I let the world dictate what I wanted and what I was doing and where I was going. I didn't rely on the confidence of God. Now, I wasn't walking in God, but I didn't rely on my friends that had been there longer. I wasn't relying on my managers and their advice. I wasn't relying on my mentors in business and management. I wasn't relying on my father's wisdom as he was trying to help me to be a good steward in my life. I didn't understand what that meant. I'm like, Dad, I got all this money now. I'm doing great. He's like, you live at home in the basement working at a sandwich shop. Yes, you're making some money, but you need to get your life together. I'm like, I'm doing great. I got a paycheck, no bills. You're welcome to that. Like, I didn't grasp what he was giving me. And over time, King Solomon couldn't grasp what he was being given. So we're going to pick up here in 1 Kings chapter 11, verses 1 through 11. So bear with me a little bit with this because it's a little long. But I think we can get through this together, and it gives us context. So King Solomon, however, loved many foreign women.